Welcome back to the Manor. Julian McBain here, and we are doing Halloween Mayhem. Okay, where are all my zombies at? Usually they just like spawn everywhere, and this time nothing doing. Ooh, first shot, that hurt. So, okay. I came in here with like less than 200 ped worth of ammo, and because of the way Mayhem works, I now have more than 200 ped worth of ammo, which is, of course, at the cost of my ped card. Having to pay for all the decay, because there's no other loot that comes in during this. But that's okay. It is my first time doing Mayhem 4. And I'm noticing that, while my points are higher than probably they would be in Mayhem 3. Not by a lot, though. Not appreciably. The difficulty isn't so far over the top that I can't keep up with it. I do wish I had the LB40. I think the damage, the increase in damage would make it so that my lifesteal would be high enough to not have to worry about the possibility of healing. I did have to heal during my first hour. Not by a lot, though. The other thing I'm going to do is, as soon as I'm done with this mob, I'm going to down one of these loot pills. But then after I was done, I went looking for a sword and no one was selling them last night, because I was gonna... I vacillated on whether to do this on Saturday night like I usually do. I wasn't really feeling very well. Nothing like... It's not COVID. I have severe allergies. And yesterday was a really bad... Like, I was off of my allergy meds for like 2 weeks, and then yesterday I just couldn't take it anymore. I bought them and they just flattened me. Because when they're not... When they're not in your system built up, your system gets used to not having them there. So I was just like, I was drowsy, I was out of it, so I decided not to do the recording, which is why this is being posted so late today, so sorry about that. But I did get into Annihilation toward the end of the day. I started to feel a little bit better, and I decided to do 1 hour, and yeah. Realized that my sword wasn't going to make it. Well, my sword did make it, but just barely. Okay, but I couldn't do a second hour, and there were no swords up for available. Thankfully today there is one available, so there's that. Oh boy, here comes the lag. Come on. I've been having some issues with my internet adapter on my computer lately, like more than usual. It's just constantly disconnecting and reconnecting like several times a day, and I don't know what's causing it. I don't know if there's always gateway issues, like it says that the default gateway is not available. I've had them since the beginning, and it's about my only complaint about Asus is that everything they do, everything in their computer is top quality except the Ethernet card or the Wi-Fi card. I don't get it. And I don't know if it's just me, or if I just got a defective one. I mean, the computer's 5 years old, so I'm not bitching too much. But still, it's very annoying. And you don't want that stuff happening while you're trying to do something like Mayhem. So, I've set my computer to be a priority device to try to make sure that no matter what, the packets won't be dropped from it. Most of the time that works. And I do that whenever I'm streaming or doing this. The only time I didn't do it, it dropped on me. I think part of the problem is that my son's computer is hardwired because he doesn't have a Wi-Fi card on his computer. And so usually hardwired computers get priority over Wi-Fi computers. So I think what's happening is my child uses a lot of bandwidth, just like all children do. And I have the feeling that that's probably a good chunk of it. Because I play Entropia Universe. He plays things like Titanfall. Heavily resource intensive, and I'm willing to bet it uses most of our bandwidth when he's playing. And I'm not saying that's all of it. I'm just saying it's probably a contributing factor. You know, I'm torn on whether Halloween Mayhem is my favorite Mayhem or if Merry Mayhem is. Overall, I love... Halloween's my favorite holiday. So, by default, Halloween Mayhem would be. And I think they did a really good job on the graveyard. Merry Mayhem, though, always seems to have a slightly better loot position. And maybe that's just my luck in that case. But that's what it feels like. I don't know, maybe I'm just imagining things. No one knows what the Ludius formula is. I doubt even the people who run MindArk know the entire formula. I bet the guy who owns MindArk has a piece, and there's a piece held by two of their executives. And kind of like the KFC formula, no one knows the whole thing. I think there's only like 2 hard copies of the KFC formula kept in separate safes. Although it does remind me of a story. There was like 15, 20 years ago. It might have been longer ago than that, but that's when I heard the story. A guy went to jail because he tried to sell the Coke formula to Pepsi. And so like he was disillusioned with his job. I don't know what was going on. He managed to steal the formula. Calls the CEO of Pepsi and says, hey, I've got the Coke formula. I want to sell it to you for, $15 million or whatever. And so I just, in my imagination, I've got this headcanon about this, where you've got the CEO of Coke sitting at his desk doing his corporate thing, and suddenly the blue telephone rings, right? It's got the little Pepsi logo on it, and the Pepsi guy's got the red telephone in his hand with the Coke logo on it. And the CEO of Pepsi calls the CEO of Coke and says, hey, a guy just offered to sell me your formula. And I mean, trade secret, corporate espionage and trade secret dealing, that's, I mean, you might get in less trouble for stealing the nuclear codes. That's how strong trade secret law is in America. So they actually jointly set up a sting with the FBI. And the guy walks in and he meets the CEO of Pepsi. And I guess in behind him walks in the CEO of Coke along with an FBI SWAT team. And they just like take him down and he goes to jail. And the two CEOs shake hands and call it a day. Now, I don't know the veracity of that. I've never actually verified that story. I have the feeling that the likelihood that something of that nature happened is high, right? The war between the two soda companies happened for years, and I'm sure that at some point, someone got the nerve up to try and steal the formula of one to give to the other for money, because, greed. And because of the way trade secrets work, I'm sure that the CEO, let's just assume that the two actors are in the correct order. The CEO of Pepsi was like, as much as we want to beat Coke, we know better than to play this game. And so he calls the CEO of Coke and says, hey, you got a problem. And because it falls under the Commerce Clause, because they're, nationwide companies, of course, that's technically they're both international companies now, the FBI would get involved and take down this person. Either that or the federal marshals. But I just... My whole thing is, imagine being the CEO of Coke and having the blue telephone ring. Because I do have this imagination. In my imagination, the two CEOs probably have a telephone that's a dedicated line for the other. And I know that's probably not the case, but, I grew up at the end of the Cold War. So the fact that there was a red telephone in the White House and it went directly to the Kremlin, and that's the only person that phone would call. It was on the president's desk and it was on the president of the Soviet Union's desk, and that was the delineation that that was a dedicated line. And actually, it was because of that telephone that we still have a world, to be honest. The number of crises that I'm sure were averted due to that telephone are probably more than we will ever know. I know, I kind of went off on a random-ass tangent there, but, I haven't had just a relaxed chatter stream or video in a long time. You know, I stopped doing the vlog. I think that was a smart thing for me to do. Kind of ran out of things to talk about overall. But this does bring up something I have been wanting to talk about a little bit. A lot of the details are still, they have to be negotiated. We have not determined whether this is going to happen, but I wanted to let everyone know. I am currently in negotiations with a local production company to possibly be doing a podcast as part of that company. Now, whether or not this channel will get roped into the deal, you know, where I have to brand or I'll voluntarily brand everything with that production company, that has yet to be determined. There's a lot of negotiation. There's a lot of moving parts that go into stuff like this. If anything happens, it's probably going to be after the new year. And of course, it all depends on whether or not I'm elected. But if that happens, I'll let you all know. I'll let you know where to find it, whether or not you're interested in the topic. We haven't even determined the absolute topic for the podcast. And so that's something that we have to hammer down, but that is being looked into. And as the details, as I get the details, I will let you know, because y'all are my audience. I spent a long time building you up and trying to, you know, give you the content you're looking for. So if there's additional content I'm putting out, I at least want to make you aware of it. There's no NDAs or anything like that, so this isn't like I'm spilling secrets or anything. But I am in that negotiation, and I'm kind of excited. I am. When it'll happen is always the trick, right? Because you have to set aside the time, you got to dedicate the time, and missing days doesn't help you very much. But my hope is if everything goes well, then I'll be part of this this new, because this is going to be a new syndicate, a new network that's based here in Vermont. So we'll be looking at that. And again, it's all going to be determined on a number of factors, and the whole thing could end up going belly up. You know, I'm not married to it, but I really like the idea. And my hope is that if we can do something, I'm going to be able to do that something, and it's going to come out well. Whoops. Gotta say, I have missed doing this. I know it sounds strange. It's like you just slashing at monsters. You do that every day in Entropia, dude. No. You're on a timer. You're trying to get points. Global 63.26 ped. Yes. Thank you, Mindark. Oh, I don't have a pet out. I'm a moron. Meow. Should always have a pet out during these. Which reminds me, I didn't have one out at all yesterday. I gotta remember, Halloween Mayhem's always the shortest Mayhem, which is really disappointing. Like, Merry Mayhem goes on forever. You can get at least 2 full runs done during that time. But for whatever reason, Mindark's decided that they're not going to do that with this Mayhem. It just doesn't make any sense. See if I can't come up with the... Oh, does that scroll? Oh, it does scroll. That's cool. Because I don't think it's just like a week and a half. Yeah, it's from October 28th through November 10th. So I've got 10 days to finish this. So it's at least an hour a day. That's not a big deal. I'll probably be doing 2 or 3 today alone, assuming my weapons hold up. But It's just, why is this one so short? And I know part of it's because they always hold it at the end of the Halloween season, which is the one thing that doesn't make sense to me. And then almost immediately, like, Mayhem opens up pretty much the beginning of December. They don't do anything for Thanksgiving. Which makes sense because Thanksgiving in November is strictly an American holiday, and this is a Swedish company. So no, I'm not criticizing them for that. It's just they've got the whole month of November off, other than this one. But you know, it would have been cool if they would give us a little more Halloween mayhem. Maybe Mindark's just over the whole killing zombies thing. I was happy to see when I jumped in here the first time, I was able to get the boss to proc in under an hour. For me, that's the real key. You got to be able to proc the boss in an hour or less. If you can proc him any more than that, and you're not going to get your maximum points efficiency. 45 minutes is better, and usually when you're at the top of the level curve for a particular mayhem, you can usually get him to proc every 45 minutes or so. And that's good, because then you can usually get an extra couple of boss fights out of the deal. I believe my last mayhem at category 3, I was able to proc the boss 12 times instead of 10. But bare minimum, you got to be able to proc the boss at least 10 times. Convert that out just so that we don't run out, and pretty soon we're gonna have to swap weapons here. Well, we're down to 327 strikes. We got probably 4 or 5 more mobs left. Thankfully, these are going down at a pretty stable pace. I'm not losing so much health to where I've got to really worry about healing. I'll definitely thank my high evade for that. And of course the Lifesteal Amp helps with that too. Although I'm going to have to replace that here pretty quick too. I think it's down to 245. And I don't know at what rate it decays. It might be just 1 bit per. So, as we all know, there are 5 decimal points, I believe, in this game. Is it 5? It's 4. Okay, so it goes all the way down to basis points. So, in the world of finance, gosh, god darn it. So you'll see this gun has a 0.1217 ped value to it. In the world of finance, anything to the left of the decimal point is dollars. Project Entropia dollars in this case. The first 2 positions are cents. Project Entropia cents. The 2 after that are basis points, which are, at its core, it's a percentage of 1%. And I have the feeling that Lifesteal Amp decays at a rate of 1 basis point per shot, per use, which is why it lasts forever, and why they're worth only 10 ped because they come out of strong boxes. Speaking of which, I've got like a whole metric ton of strong boxes. I either need to buy keys. Oh, I know why I didn't open them. Because the frickin' Mindark store went down. I gotta see if that's back up. I'm sure it is by now. It's only been a month. But I was like, good job, Mindark. Only Mind Art could manage to break the very system they use to pay themselves. You know what I'm saying? As I'm rubbing at my now whiskered chin, I need to remind everyone it is No Shave November. For those of you who participate, may Ludius have mercy upon your itchy skin, especially if you've been clean shaven for a while. We're having a good time. Actually, I have to say, I do have a good time on the live streams. Got a good group going there. For those of you who have not been recently, I do have my first 2 moderators that have been appointed. They will be the only ones I appoint. There's one more coming. I know all 3 of them IRL. So that was part of the criteria for me selecting them as my first mods. As the channel grows, I will likely need more. And I will always speak to you before appointing you. And we would negotiate on whether or not you would be a good choice. Or not necessarily a good choice, a good fit. Because there are people who are fantastic moderators, but they may not be a good fit for a particular channel due to the way that channel works. I've known several people like that, and I've been a moderator in a place where I was not a good fit to be a moderator in that place. And at the end, it's like, you know, I appreciate the fact that you wanted me to be a mod, but I am not a good fit for the style of this particular... It was the old Blackboard forums where you'd do RPG, like, way back in the day before you had... not before MMOs, but we're talking, like, back when Entropia Universe was still Project Entropia days, right? Back when dial-up was still common in areas. Jesus, I'm old. But yeah, no, that's... At some point, I'm sure more mods will be selected, so... Oh, sword's running out. How much do we have left? Okay. Come on. Just gonna monitor this. Do one more mob. One more mob will probably be fine, but then we'll have to swap the sword around. You know, it's funny. I go through periods of time where I'll want to do nothing but get home and play Entropia Universe. And then I'll go through periods of time when I'm just like, eh. Yeah. Detach. And the funny thing is for whatever reason... They'll come and go, and I'll have those days, and then all of a sudden I'll be like, yeah, let's get back into it, let's go, go, go. And maybe it's around the Mayhem times, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe that's just the way people are. That's entirely possible, that that's just the way people are. So what do you think I should do a podcast about? Drop a comment below. I'd actually like to know what your opinions are on the matter. The guy I'm negotiating with is leaning toward politics. I'm not opposed to it, but I am kind of tepid because of just how polarized everything is right now. Not a fan of that type of polarization myself. But there are other options as well. I could do interviews. Most of my interviews would probably be locally based, so that would be much more of a local interest. That's what he largely does, a lot of local interest stuff, but I would probably have a niche within that whole idea, whereas he'll interview just about anyone. I don't know. And that's always been my problem. Like, I've wanted to do a podcast for a while. But, I mean, the easiest thing to do a podcast about is the thing that'll get you... Say the wrong thing, and boy, oh howdy, people will string you up by your ears. No, I got nothing. I just got nothing on that. But yeah, drop a comment. What's your opinion? What would you think would be an interesting podcast to see? Especially since you know my normal style of doing things. You know, the vlog was essentially a podcast. I just turn on a camera and talk about my feelings on the internet. To quote Tim Pool. Glad to have gotten a global, though. I didn't get one at all yesterday. That was kind of disappointing. $640. Oh, no, 6408. Okay. I keep forgetting where the decimal needs to be put in. There we go. This is it, guys. I hit the half-hour mark. This is where I usually run out of things to talk about. That's the other problem I have. I run out of things to talk about in about 30 minutes. I don't know why. I mean, it's different on a live stream. You know, I do my live stream for an hour and a half, but there's a dialogue there. You know, I'm talking to folks and stuff like that. They're talking amongst each other. There's a conversation happening. It's not like that here. This is definitely monologue territory. But that's okay. You know, each one has its place. Ooh, 4930. Thank you, Mindark. That was a mini. I think for this level, the line where it's a true global is 50 ped. I could be wrong about that. Because 60 ped's a global, but 49 is not. So if I had to make a guess, that would be where it starts being considered global territory. And we're at 400 points. Which is not anywhere near what I need to get on the map, but... In fact, what is the delineating line here? Mayhem 4, hit the scores, get these out of the way. So, Okay, 10th place is only 7,098 points. And 7th place is only 7,300. That's still doable. That's very doable. I mean, there's a lot of RNG on this one. That's the one thing I don't like about Mayhem, is that I personally feel like there's way too much RNG involved in Mayhem. I like the idea that if there was like a formula to the way that points were given, you know, if like from 1 to 10 based on eco or efficiency or speed or anything like that, I think would be a good way of doing things. It would make for much closer competitions. And I understand that it's all actually randomized. Raccoon Brand's on top. Hey, guy. Raccoon Brand's good people. But if I had one complaint about Mayhem, it's the extremely random nature of how the points are divvied out. It's just, are the dice with you today, or is... I don't even know if it's an actual algorithm or if it's just true random number generation. And it might be that those points values are attached to the mob when they are spawned. Like, we don't even know that. Because that, to a certain extent, I could accept. I mean, yeah, we as players don't know what it is. But at least then, if the numbers are attached to the mob when the mob is spawned, just like if the loot is attached to the mob when the mob is spawned, there's a certain expectation there that it's going to be stable. And then it's just a matter of, did you pull the right mobs? And no, there's no way for you to know, but that's fine. It's still a case of, did you pull the right mobs? If they're randomly generating at point of death, then that's, you know, not quite as nice in my opinion. It's not as good. Come on. Hit him. There we go. I wonder what my latency is. Oof, 360. It's really odd that it's that high when I'm the only one here. Although these aren't dedicated servers, I know. It's like I don't have the whole server to myself. As much as I wish I did, I don't. I will say this. The last couple of Mayhems I've been using Mind Force chips to pull. I think the rifle is far more efficient. The swap out is faster. Damage equivalency is not a big deal. I mean, yeah, I'm doing more damage with the rifle because I've got a higher skill level, but if you were to even that out, that's like not even an issue. But the brain fart. The fact that you can quickly swap the rifle in and out much faster than a Mind Force chip. And the fact that if you do fire an extra, the recycle rate on a rifle is faster than any Mind Force chip, I think is critical during an event like this where speed is important. The faster you can swap weapons, pull a mob, and then swap back. Because I'm a melee player, that's especially important because I can't just, like, come here. And if I go to and try to run toward them, I'm going to end up pulling, you know, half the room, and then I'll just get stomped flat like I did in my first Mayhem. It's like, oh, let's run into the mobs. Oh, I've pulled 17 of them, and now I'm dead. That didn't work quite the way I had planned. I don't have the survivability of a Death Knight in this game, and there's no AoEs. Whoops. Oh, here's a piece of news for those of you who are paying attention to the upcoming competitor to Entropia universe. The Virtueverse team has announced they will be doing a second public early access. They're calling it 4.1. and that will be happening in November. It'll be roughly the same time that Halloween Mayhem ends. So go to virtueverse.io and get into the Discord and find out what the official announcement is. And I hope to see you there as much as I do hope to see you here. I love both games. Once Virtueverse releases, I will be playing both games. To what extent? Well, 2 real cash economy games makes for a lot of real cash economy games. But I think that I can balance the two out. The barrier to entry for entry in VV is actually a lot smaller, or it will be a lot smaller than it will be for EU. But on the same token, it's a lot less passive. Like, you've got to work it if you're going to be as efficient as you can be in EU when it comes to, like, eco gameplay and stuff like that. The combat is way more dynamic. Which, in my opinion, that's a plus side. But does mean there are going to be days where I'm like, I don't want to be dodging Titans. Let's just go in and kill some Fifoids. You know what I'm saying? And it all depends on what you're in the mood for that night. And that's why I like the idea of having the 2 games. And this is something that I think a lot of people don't realize. I don't think Virtueverse is trying to directly compete with EU on a fundamental level. I mean, to a certain extent, they're going to attract a lot of the same crowd. So they will, to a certain point, compete with each other. But at the same time, the gameplay style is so dynamically different from a combat perspective. That piece right there is all going to be about what are you in the mood for. You know? EU is by far the most chill gameplay I have ever seen in my life. The only way you can get more laid back is if you're playing Bejeweled. Like, seriously. I come in here and it's all about the numbers, and you know it's about the numbers, and so you look at it and say, okay, this looks to be the most efficient setup, let's go hunting. And I hit the F key, and I'm not even touching my keyboard right now. You try pulling that shit in VV, you're going to get your ass stomped. But, by comparison, if I'm tired, if I don't want to, if I just want to relax and play a game and maybe watch Star Trek on the side or put a movie on and chill, this game is perfect for it. And you know what? 3 to 5 days a week, that's kind of how I am. It's like, I got out of work and I just did my videos. I just want to chill for a while. And this is the perfect game to play while you're chilling. It absolutely is. It absolutely is the best game to play while you're chilling. And sometimes I forget that, but then again, I'm also playing Star Trek Fleet Command. It's the first mobile game I've honestly been into in an extremely long time. And I don't normally get into mobile games. I'm like, okay, I'll give it a shot. It's Star Trek. Just like I've tried Star Trek Online. I've got friends who are like, hey, Julian, get into Star Trek Online. It's like, but I've played part of Star Trek Online. And, the thing about Star Trek Online is that the story writers are amazing in Star Trek Online. Like, WoW has a good storyline. Final Fantasy has an excellent storyline. When it comes to storyline, the team over at Star Trek Online blows both of them out of the water. Period. Dot. And to a certain extent, that's to be expected, because it's produced by the same people who made the Star Trek series. And you have a hard time beating the people when it comes to plot in a lot of those Star Trek movies and series. They just do a fantastic job because they've been doing it forever. They know what they're doing, and they've never allowed themselves to slip into lazy storytelling like, say, the Blizzard team did. And yes, I will die on that hill. I am still very pissed off at Blizzard over the Sylvanas thing, and I will die on this hill. If they don't somehow redeem Sylvanas, I'm out, guys. Like, I've canceled my WoW subscription. I did that over a year ago. Not over a year ago. It was like 7 or 8 months ago. But it was at the beginning of the whole 2020 thing, or it was late 2019. I can't recall. I got pissed over the whole Sylvanas is a bad guy now during the last expansion. No, it was probably over a year ago now. Because, yeah, that's really when I kind of got pissed off. But, oh, fuck. Oh, the storyline. the people who run Star Trek Online, the people who developed it, know how to write a story. Blows everything out of the water. Spaceship combat is phenomenal. It plays how I would expect actual space combat to operate. The way the shields work, the way the weapons work for the most part, it's pretty accurate to canon. I think they did a really good job. The way you can turn your ship away and have them strike other shield quadrants and that are unaffected from the broader damage scope. Sometimes it's actually advantageous to turn your back on an enemy so that the shots are hitting fresh shields as opposed to the damaged frontal shields. Shield regeneration rates all make a lot of sense to keep game balance. Being able to actively repair your ship while in combat makes sense. The internal systems at least. But where it loses out, and this is where I have a hard time playing, their ground combat's a fried turd. It absolutely is. It's a gilded fried turd, but it's a fried turd. And this is what I said to my buddy Edward when he tried to get me into the game. It's just like, hey, you gotta come and play. And I'm like, brother, we're both Masons. I'm like, brother, the ground combat kills me. Like, the plot rescues that game. If the plot was bad, then it would be irredeemable. But it's so hard to do the ground combat. And the amount of ground... Now, to be fair, ground combat was introduced later. It was kind of an afterthought. And it's, according to everything I've heard, it's gotten better. Which doesn't really redeem it. It's just like, oh. If they could make the ground combat just a little bit better, make it so that it didn't feel like the controls were gummy when you're fighting ground combat, I could deal with it. I could put up with it. I could play. I absolutely could. And maybe that's just my bias. It's just, for me, because I do so much like of this type of gameplay, if I can't do this, it's really hard for me to justify playing the game. It's just like it's less fun. Other than that, it's pretty much MMO fare. I don't even know how I got on this tangent. Well, you know me. Severe case of ADOS. I love my points to show total right now. The funny thing is, so I have never done like marijuana, but I live in Vermont, which has one of the biggest marijuana cultures ever. So I see 420 and I just have to chuckle, and I've been chuckling about stuff like that since like 8th grade. Is it's like, oh yeah, ha 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 ha, 420. Got about 15 minutes or so before CallRom should spawn. I'm really kind of hoping he spawns a bit earlier, because then I can retrieve a few extra minutes, and every minute counts in this particular, competition. That's why I always draw him back to the teleporter back when, when I'm fighting him. So I can immediately turn around and I'm not wasting those seconds running back to the terminals. Oofda. M token. I have to admit, if for whatever reason I didn't earn a single extra point the entire Mayhem and ended with 420, I'd be happy just because of the screenshot. You know what I'm saying? I'd just be like, boom. Jesus, the way I'm talking, you think I was some sort of pothead. Never touch this stuff. Never touched this stuff. I've had friends who tried to get me to. I have. One of them wanted me to travel with him to Canada where it was... I don't know if it was absolutely illegal or just more legal than it was in the States at the time. We're talking back in, like, you know, 2000, 2001. And he's like, we're going to go up to Canada and we're going to clan bake your car. And I'm like, no! We are not doing that. You know, Mindark, I was actually joking. I do want more points than 420. I'd kind of like to be somewhere in the the running. Not necessarily, you know, on the top 10, because I know better than to assume I'm going to make top 10, but it'd be nice if it looked like I was making an effort toward it. Gone on all sorts of tangents today, haven't we, guys? That's okay. I haven't done a free flow like this in a really long time. I'm usually aiming toward topics and stuff like that. I know currently I'm doing my Modern Entropian series, which I will resume after Mayhem. Which I know I broke it for VV, and then now it's Mayhem, but it's hard to do like the Modern Entropian and Mayhem because the videos are so long. With the Modern Entropian, the video only is supposed to be as long as the topic takes. If it takes a half hour, it takes a half hour. If it takes 10 minutes, it only takes 10 minutes. But that's kind of the point of those videos, is they're topical and their length is very precisely set to what they're supposed to be. With Mayhem, you can't do it. With Mayhem, you're stuck in the instance until you're done. And it's too hard to, like, tab out and stop and start vids while you're in Mayhem and have it make any sense. You make mistakes. It's going to harm my chances at competing for the getting on the board. Like, truly being in the top 10. Not that I think I'm going to make it on this Mayhem, but it's a good idea of where I could expect to be. Because I should be in Category 4 for at least another year, year and a half. At my rate of growth, with the diminishing returns. Like, I was in Category 3 for 2 years. And since I just barely started Cat 4, I'll probably be in Cat 4 until 2022, 2023. Depending on how much I play, at what level I play. I've been focusing on other things. That's part of the reason I was able to do Cat 3 for so long. Because I was doing things like spending time sweating and spending time doing Mind Force and spending time... You know, I spent some time doing mining this year, which I was already over the threshold, so that wouldn't have made a big difference. I am trying to kind of make up for lost time on that, though, and so I haven't put a lot into it, and maybe that's why I took the break, because I was just like, ugh, probe drop, probe drop, probe drop. But... Oh! Codex! I've been on Cyrene so long I forgot. Track that sucker. Dex. Oh wow, 101 dexterity. I actually flew back to Calypso last night just to do the Mayhem. After Mayhem's over, of course, I will be flying back to Cyrene. Level 79, oh my god. Nice markup blue. Yeah, that's great. I think I'll stomp on my face. If that thing sneezed on me, I would die with my best armor on. Okay? I don't have the 200 USD to jump into frickin' Perseus, which I know lasts for a really long time. But, someday. Someday I will be in a position. today is not that day. Speaking of which, if you like what I do, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/JulianMcBain. I do want to give a huge shout out to my patrons. Red Kryptonite, who was my first patron, and he was my only patron for months. I would say almost a year. It was at least 6 months. It might not have been a whole year, but it was a long time. And Spectrum 3900 and Jason Lambertson, who joined in the same month. This was a few months back. Thank you so much for all of your support. I really appreciate it. It really helps the channel out. If you become a patron, then you get the Modern Entropian, which is my ebook about this game, and Personal Finance for Gamers, which will help you with, I use the knowledge I got from my 9 to 5, which I have been doing finance for 8 years. And I dumped the sum of all of that knowledge into this, it's like 14,000 words to help you with your personal finances. So if if you decide to become a patron, I really appreciate it. And thank you all for your support for being here. If you're new to the channel, I want to say welcome to the Manor, and I would ask that you consider subscribing. My catchphrase has been for a long time, we are on the road to 13 million subscribers, one subscription at a time. So that's my hope. That's my dream, is to make it to 13 million subscribers. And for those of you wondering why I chose that amount for the newer members to this channel, what I did is when I decided I needed a goal for subscription amount, I decided that 1% of YouTube, 1% of YouTube users was my goal. That was it. I thought that should be achievable. And there's 1.3 million YouTubers. Not YouTubers, but people on YouTube. Whether they're just users or if they have channels, doesn't matter. That's the long and the short of it. So that is my goal. Token. Slowly grinding those up. The LB50, I think, is the Mayhem Sword, which is pretty high level. And I think it's UL. I'll have to check, but I think it's UL. The only downside is I'm pretty sure you have to have a placement token to buy it. I could be wrong about that, though. I know most of the non-placement token items are like amps, stuff like that. I'll have to take a look. I can't remember. I've got all my daily tokens here. I should probably spend some time grinding those up. Because there's a jacket that I want. But it's 6,000 tokens. It's like, Jesus, it'll take me a decade to earn that many tokens. I have to be playing every fucking day. I mean, that's good. That's part of the reason they did it like that. But, Jesus. Come on, CallRom. I want you to spawn. I've been highly efficient. Oh, relatively efficient. There he is. Take him down. Pull him toward the porter. We don't want to be too close. We don't want to accidentally activate the porter. That would be bad. That almost happened to me once. I clicked, I turned around, I'm like, no! Thankfully, I managed to cancel the command, but I almost accidentally teleported myself out of the damn instance while fighting CallRom. Was it CallRom? No, I'm sorry. That was during Summer Mayhem, so it was one of the Fifoids, I think. Whatever the boss for that was, it doesn't matter. It was the boss, and I almost left the instance with the boss right there. Talk about a panic-inducing moment. Come on. I don't want to have to heal. Hey, you're not supposed to evade, only I can evade. That's how this works. It's kind of like that line in Buffy. Humans don't fight back. That's not how this is done. Humans don't fight back. Come on. Ow. Boom. Yeah. All right. We are doing good. Put that strong box up. Okay, guys. I appreciate you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe down below. We are on the road to 13 million subscribers, one subscription at a time, so make sure you subscribe. Hey, as always, I appreciate the support. I hope you made it this far. I know I kind of tangented all over the place today. Sometimes you just need a video where you do that. As always, I appreciate the support, and we'll see you in the next one.